Okay, I think it's time to start. Good afternoon, everybody. We really appreciate you joining us this early afternoon. My name is Harvey Kaminski. I have been for a number of years on the board of American Friends of Bar-Ilan University. And more importantly, or just as important, is I'm a staunch advocate of the school. Every year, I am more and more impressed by what the school does in terms of education, research, chesed, and now we're going to learn about other things they're doing also, which is their third mission. So this will be very insightful to hear about securing Israel's future, Bar-Ilan's third mission in action, okay? So I just want to say some opening statements, and we'll see a video, and then we'll start hearing from our esteemed guests. While we're in a period right now of renewed hope, we're also confronted, and Israel's confronted specifically, by challenges. Both Israel and the Jewish people must overcome these challenges in order to move forward. As Israel society moves and works to heal and return to a sense of normalcy after a long and difficult war, countless individuals and families are still navigating the lasting impact of loss, displacement, and trauma. In this context, Bar-Ilan has taken the lead and stepped forward to meet this moment with purpose and compassion while working to secure the well-being of Israel's present and future generations. This work is reflected in what the university calls its third mission, the commitment to extending its influence beyond the first two missions, which are teaching and research. This third mission emphasizes social responsibility, cultural engagement, and community resilience. Emotional resilience plays a central role in this mission, reflecting Bar-Ilan's belief that thriving societies depend on individuals and institutions capable of recovery and renewal. The university's programs and outreach aim to cultivate this resilience by encouraging empathy, purpose, and social cohesion. By embedding emotional and communal strength within the academic and social media, Bar-Ilan's third mission positions the university as both a leader and a generator of knowledge, a catalyst for healing and progress in Israel and beyond. With that background, I'm thrilled, and I'm not understating it, they're thrilled and honored that we're joined today by two remarkable and dynamic leaders who embody and implement this mission. Professor Rivka Tuval-Mashiach is a clinical psychologist, trauma expert, and Bar-Ilan's Vice President for International Affairs and Third Mission. Welcome, Professor Tuval-Mashiach. And we are also joined by Professor Noa Vilchinsky, a rehabilitation psychologist and Dean of the Division of Designated Programs at Bar-Ilan University. Professors Tuval-Mashiach and Vilchinsky will guide us through how Bar-Ilan's mission is turning compassion to action, transforming trauma into strength, and ensuring that recovery leads to renewal. Before we introduce them and let them speak, we'll first take an up-close look at one of their most impactful initiatives, the Shalom Project, which helps wounded soldiers reclaim their lives through education. So, with that being said, we will now show the video.
In rehabilitation psychology, we always say, when you are severely wounded, you never go back to the life you've had. You have to build a new path.
The war creates so much helplessness, sometimes even hopelessness, that I think that everything that we do that helps us to overcome the prices of the war, it really changes our lives.
בן אדם שהוא בשיקום, גם נפשי, גם פיזי, זה לא פשוט. פרויקט השלום של האוניברסיטה באמת עזר לי.
Project HaShalom is a new initiative that we developed here last year in Bar-Ilan for our students and for injured soldiers who were injured during the Iron Swords War. We saw that many of them go through a very, very long rehabilitation process, and while they are there, they become encapsulated in the hospitals. So we understood that in order to help them start thinking about the future, we need to invite them to a healthy, normal, young environment to start taking these first steps. So we initiated courses for free for injured students.
We take care of everything, they just need to come to class and enjoy studying.
3 שבועות לפני שסיימתי את הטירונות, קרה 7/10. במהלך הלחימה בתוך המוצב הותקלתי בשתי מחבלים בטווח ממש קרוב, 2-3 מטר. קיבלתי כדור לכף רגל, נפלתי. כשהעירו אותי אמרו לי, תשמע, הרגל שלך, צריך לקרות אותה. אני לא רציתי לוותר על הרגל. למזלי נפלתי על רופאים מדהימים, אבל אמרו לי שהכל תלוי בי. שאחרי הניתוח זה תלוי בי, השיקום, הפיזיותרפיה והכל, כמה יש לי מוטיבציה באמת לקום מהמיטה ולחזור לחיים.
It's a beginning for them, and I think, the big thing is that they dare to go out of the hospital.
עטפו אותי ממש. זה באמת כאילו החיה אותי, לקום מהמיטה ולהגיע לפה, גם כשהיה אסור לי לדרוך בכלל. זה להרגיש תחושת ניצחון, שאתה מנצח את הפציעה.
You have to build a new path. It can be better, it can be full of meaning, but it's regaining your identity with the injury.
Many disabled young men and women are going to be part of the Israeli society for the next years, because this is the price of war. We need to hug them and say, you are our heroes.
Thank you for providing us the opportunity to make this happen.
על כל התמיכה והעזרה ועל הקיום של התוכנית הזאת, תוכנית השלום, שמאפשרת לנו ללוחמים לראות שאנחנו יכולים להמשיך הלאה ולתת לנו תחושת מסוגלות. תודה לאוניברסיטת בר-אילן ולידידים של אוניברסיטת בר-אילן.
Wow. Yasher Koach to the university and to the professors for their inspiring work. I mean, the video was inspiring, but most of all, the work is inspiring. Before we get going with today's discussion, we'll have a dedicated Q&A section at the end of this webinar. So please feel free. If you have any questions that you have for Professors Tuval-Mashiach and Vilchinsky, please leave it in the QA box on Zoom, and I'll do my best to get to every one of them. Without further ado, please join me now in welcoming our distinguished guests. And I'm going to start out by asking them questions, and we'll go from there. Welcome, professors. Again, we're very honored and happy to have you. And obviously, the wonderful response we have is a tribute to the wonderful work you've been doing. So, as an opening question, I would posit or question, as psychologists, how would you describe the emotional state of Israel today, both individually and as a society, after such an extended and painful period of conflict?
Well, I'll start by saying that, having watched the video that you just showed many times, it still keeps me really very emotional. And I think mainly it's because Noa and me, we just come from another session with the new cohort of injured students that just started their studies this semester, about 2 weeks ago. And it's amazing to see that we are growing, and this group is much, much bigger, and they share the same experiences, that it's a life-changing thing for them. So I just wanted to mention it because it really is still touching us deeply, that this is the feeling. I'll say that I think part of the reasons that we still cope with the aftermath of the war is that this war has been very, very different than previous wars that we knew. It confronted us with new challenges that we never had to face. We never had civilians kidnapped. We never had such a huge atrocity rate. We never had to cope with so many different stressors and traumatic events at the same time. And although in other wars, we did experience a collective trauma, this is definitely a national trauma for us Israelis. And when we think about the tolls of this ongoing war that took more than 2 years to at least to get to a ceasefire, I can say that we are in a state where we feel a combination of feelings. There is relief, especially since most of the hostages and all the live hostages came back, most of the hostages including. And of course, there is a relief of the ceasefire, but there is also burnout, and there is also the need for us to regain resources after 2 years of constant, coping with the war, with worrying for our soldiers, with being worried for the hostages. There is now a new understanding of the losses that we lost, and we need to come to terms with the assumptions that we lost on the way about who we trust, about the institutions, about what happened in October 7 and after. So I would generally say that it's a combination of mixed feelings, both negative, positive, loss of energy, but renewal of energy. And I'll just briefly mention that, in terms of the post-traumatic rates that we see, we did see a rise in the first months of the war, but then we saw a decrease for the most of the population. But until this day, what we see is that there are vulnerable communities and vulnerable packets of individuals, like the evacuated families, the families of the hostages, families who lost their dear ones, who are still coping with high rates of anxiety, depression, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is where we need to really focus our efforts.
This is a little side question, okay, which was not prepared, but I just thought about it. Does the world situation with the anti-Semitism have any effect on this? Is that just make it worse in the situation, make your job more difficult, or are they so focused on post-war that they're insulated from it? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, but when you say they, you mean us Israelis?
So, well, not you. I guess your students. They're not really dealing with that, are they? They're in their little. They're not a little, but they're insulated. They're dealing with their own country, right? They don't know. They don't have to. Or is that not what is the situation?
No, I don't think this is true. I think for two reasons, it's definitely touching them. One,
it is, yeah.
Yeah, it is. One is that I think our students, especially in Bar-Ilan, they feel that we are a community, and they feel the relationships with Jews all over the world. So we know what happens, for you guys in the States, and we know what happens in other countries in Europe, and we do care, and we hear, and we know, and of course we have international students coming and sharing, but also I think they know it and they care because part of what we feel and what we see is that the world does not support Israel, and we needed this support, not financially and not politically, but we needed the world to validate our experience on October 7. And what we saw is that, we are being blamed for everything. We are being seen as the ones who deserve to get this October 7 by many countries. So, of course, our students and our faculty are very much aware of the anti-Semitism.
But it probably makes your job more difficult then, doesn't it, a little bit, right? That's an added layer, or you're right.
Yeah, I would say it's an added layer, definitely. Yes.
Right. Okay, just in time. Professor Vilchinsky, do you want to add anything here, or
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was kicked out due to.
No, you weren't kicked out.
Don't take it personally, Noah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I haven't been able to hear everything that Rivka said, but I may add, and please stop me if you already spoke about it, that the trauma that we've been through is not only cataclysmic and horrifying, and it was so brutal, and you know, the atrocities were so horrifying, as I said, and also it's a collective one, as Rivka said, but it was also an enduring one, meaning that the hostages, they haven't been released for so long. So I don't know if Rivka touched upon it, but it was a very specific kind of trauma that it wasn't an exclusive event. It was something that kept on and continued, and we weren't able to rehabilitate at all. Even now, we still have 3 bodies waiting to, or 4, I don't know, 3, that we still await for them to return home. So everything we knew about rehabilitation, we have to rewrite, and we have to come up with new ideas how to deal with this very unique trauma for a whole nation. There is no precedent for that. So I hoped I added.
You did. That leads me into the next obvious questions, and it's a very difficult question about the long-term effects you're seeing when it comes to trauma, anxiety, and resilience across the different parts of Israeli life, from families and schools to workplaces and communities. Can you address that, please?
Yes, absolutely. I will take it first now, Rivka. Okay, so we still don't know how bad it's going to be. That's the story is not ended. We are just at the beginning. I mean, the war is as if ended. We still have soldiers. We still have, we still recruit people, but it's on low level. But then again, the war at home has just started, because only now we start to see the magnitude of the effect. We knew that we have more than 20,000 wounded soldiers, but we don't know how many post-traumatized soldiers are there truly, because not all of them even know that they're post-traumatized. We don't know how many post-traumatized family members are there. We know about many of them, but not all of them. And we still don't know the long effects or long-lasting effects. And we know from the Yom Kippur War, the first October War, how long it affected Israel DNA. So we have a guess about how long this one is going to affect us. But we also know that we have huge, the rise in depression, anxiety, PTSD is overwhelming. We have a great number of divorce among soldiers, soldiers' families, couples. There are many divorces. We also have high suicidal rate among those who served in this war. I mean, we have 53 people as of the beginning of this month who took their own lives because they witnessed, whatever happened there, or they suffered from moral injuries due to what they had to do during the war. So just at our university, the clinic for students, the psychological clinic for students that we have here for many years, they saw a rise of 300% in newcomers, in needs among only our students. So we are only starting to feel the magnitude of difficulties that we have to, take care of.
Yeah, if I may add.
Please, Professor.
Yes, so I would like to join up by adding maybe 2 points. One is that Noah spoke about the direct impact of the war, which is the first thing that we tend to think of: anxiety, depression, post-trauma. And the rates are high, and as Noa said, we still are not sure, but we can know from previous wars that usually PTSD will run for about a fifth, 20% of those who were exposed will suffer. So if you think of a nation, of 10 million, it's a huge number. But I want to speak about two other aspects. One is the indirect costs, the long-lasting indirect costs, and we now know from a financial perspective that the war created a huge rise in car accidents, fatal car accidents in Israel of more than 20%.
Wow.
Okay? We saw a high rise in addiction. Okay, these are the indirect tolls of war. We saw a high rise in domestic violence, and let me just share with you that while the rate of domestic violence is usually 3%, when one of the partners is a reservist, it doubles itself to 6%. But when the two partners are serving, and in Israel it can happen that both the husband and the wife serve in the military during the war, then it triples. So we see higher and higher rates of domestic violence. And of course, this is a comorbidity of their stress from the war and from from coming home, to a home that doesn't feel safe. We see a rise in cardiac diseases. We see a 100% rise in what we call the broken heart syndrome since October 7. And that was a very rare phenomenon in Israel before October 7. So these are the indirect costs, okay? And of course, they translate to a financial toll, and it's a huge aspect that we need not to ignore. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that there is a long-lasting war toll that if a trauma, especially at the collective level, is not processed, then it will go intergenerational. And we know it. And this is why both Noa and me and the other excellent trauma researchers that we have in Bar-Ilan, we really work hard to help people process the trauma as early as possible. And we try to intervene as early as possible, because what we know, and I know because I work with the Yom Kippur veterans when they are now 75, that if trauma is untreated, then it runs for 50 years and more, and it runs to your grandchildren, and it runs to your children, and we must, prevent this. And we must prevent this from running into the Israel of the next 50 years.
But before I get to the next question, I just want to ask one quick, probably an obvious question, but is the goal to keep the post-trauma in check, or is the goal eventually to try and overcome it and make it disappear?
It's a great question. Noa, do you want to take it?
No, you're going to take it. I'm going to speak later about something else.
Okay.
So it's a great question. Trauma is not a binary thing. You could suffer from different levels of PTSD. So in many cases, you can overcome it. When the trauma is really very heavy, so you usually learn to live with it. As Noa said in the video, you learn to live meaningful life, but it's an emotional and internal injury. You don't just get rid of it. You can sometimes feel its scar. You can be triggered by anniversaries or by memories or reminders. And sometimes you just live with pain, but you can learn to live with it, satisfying and meaningful life. So it depends, it depends what you were exposed.
But we definitely must treat it. And what I wanted to add is that we focus here on trauma in Israel, but I keep thinking about you guys back home, outside of Israel. What is it about? What about you? And it was, I think it was trauma for every Jew in the world, maybe not only Jews, but we focus on Israel, but we feel the trauma and suffering of people all over the world due to what happened in Israel. So I was also wondering, what's going on outside? Do you get treatment also outside of Israel?
Well, it's look, we feel some relief because the war is over, but we're still being inundated with anti-Semitism, which actually is even being exacerbated every week. So we're in a process where, people are very shaken up by what's going on. People don't know where it's safe to be anymore. There is a lot of, I wouldn't go to the extent maybe of post-traumatic stress, but there was a lot of anxiety, a lot. Okay.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. I mean, and it's enduring. It's not an exclusive event that you've been through.
That's right.
You can start treating.
It's actually increasing. I mean, the events going on here are not really giving us relief. They're just being, we're looking for some relief, but it's not happening. All right, let me move on to the next question if I could, because you've been fabulous in your answers and you've offered us so much information. I want to get as much as I can from both of you. This obviously by far was the longest war in Israel's history. Thousands were physically and emotionally wounded. What are the most urgent needs for national recovery, and what will it take for Israel's health and social systems to truly heal?
Oy.
It's a lot, I know.
Yeah, I'll start now, we'll continue. We use a new term that is called rolling trauma. Rolling trauma means that too many events happen in a row and you can't really recover from one, and you still already have to cope with the next one. So what is missing is your time to recuperate your energy and your resources. So when the situation is such of a rolling trauma, as we experienced in the last 2 years, it leads to a depletion of resources. I want to briefly mention a very powerful theory, which is called conservation of resources by Stephen Hopeful. And Stephen Hopeful speaks about, what you need in order to be resilient. And the more you lose resources, the less you can just go back to your daily routine. So if you think about, financial resources, of course, we were hurt by this. If you think about our security and safety, if you think about, our worry for our soldiers, our sons, our spouses who serve in the reserve, if you think about the loss of many of our assumptions, the feeling in trust in the government, the feeling, at least at the beginning, in our ability to trust the army who wasn't there on October 7th. These are psychological, physical, material, emotional resources that we lost many of them. This is why what we need to do now, both individually and as a collective, is to start regaining our resources. Okay, we need to refuel, if you like, our batteries. To refill the batteries, we need to recharge them. We're quite depleted now. One of the things that really, refills the batteries is what Noa and I and all the great people in Bar-Ilan do, is by working to better the world, is by working to really attend to the needs of others, because it gives you meaning, it gives you hope, it gives you a feeling that you are not helpless. So one of the things that is needed is, and I think if you know Israelis, you know that we all do it, and I think Bar-Ilan is a great example, is that we need everyone to really feel responsibility for the next step. And this is what we try to do. We feel that, yes, we are all very tired, but we need now to take part in the healing of our society and of our communities. And the second thing is that I think that what we need to do, because one of the aspects that we didn't touch yet is that this war has left us with a social rift. And you know, we have different opinions. Some people thought that the war should have ended. Others thought that the war should have continued. And we need to have more compassion to everybody, because all of us are in pain, and all of us lost. Many of us lost more than others. So we need to be in a state of you know, thinking, each one of us, how we can, what we can do and how we can do to help, and be less judgmental and more compassionate towards others and their opinions.
Well said. Professor Vilchinsky?
Yeah, I'm going to say something which is really difficult to hear, but the mental health system, the public mental health system in Israel, was unfortunately deprived from resources for many, many years. And we psychologists and other mental health professionals were shouting and crying and calling for the government to rethink the way it, you know, take care or prioritize the mental health system. And unfortunately, the war and everything that went with it came across almost dismantle services. So, you know, the public society, the society, us people, we just had to do things on our own and to kind of cover the holes that what was supposed to be done by the government. And I'm not talking politics at all. No. This was the situation. But what happened is that our society really was amazing in what she did, in the way bottom up, you know, all kinds of innovations and ventures just happened to assist each other. And we have to remember that I believe the Jewish nation is very strong because the community is so important for us. And we feel that we belong to one big family, you know, one big community. And this is what Rivka and I try to do in our university. And as Rivka said, to make this, to really have this sense of community, and that being part of this community is very meaningful, and assisting this community can also assist me as a person, because I'm not alone, and I'm part of something much bigger than me. And this sense of meaning and shared community is, I believe, two of the most important, you know, milestones or points that we can use. And it's very difficult because
get on the call.
Sorry?
No, I'm sorry.
As, you know, mental health professionals, as other people, we share the trauma. It's not that we came, you know, from a vacation in Seychelles Islands, we start treating people in Israel. We were traumatized ourselves. Our sons, both Rivka and mine, served in the army during the war. Rivka's son in Gaza. And we need to take care of people while we are, you know, we cope ourselves. So how do you, you know, how do you help a nation that everyone is hurt, right, and even the people that need to take care of others are part of this?
That some of the questions that we'll deal with later discuss that, how people want to know how they can help. So we'll deal with that a little bit later. But I'm going to move on to the next question, which is, you know, I mentioned before about overcoming or dealing with post-traumatic stress, but the question now is, your positivity, does it extend to the belief that you can come out stronger than before, you know, after this terrible experiences? Is that really something that you strive to? And how is Bar-Ilan helping students and communities build that kind of personal resilience day to day?
Okay, I have to start here. I'm eager to share. Well, one of the things that Rivka and I did right after October 7th, in really few days after even, is thinking what can be done. We had to do something in order to save Israel. And what can we do as professor in an academic organization? We thought about it, and we launched the Resiliency Center, the first academic resiliency center in Israel. I don't know if there are any kind, centers like that in the world, because what is an academic resiliency center? It's a new thing. And within this center, we tried to, save the hope, the meaning, the sense of community of all students, 22,000 students of Bar-Ilan, 5,000, faculty and staff members, while doing all kinds of interventions and workshops and meeting and lectures and whatever comes to mind. And I believe what gave us the most meaningful and satisfaction feeling is what we did for the wounded soldiers, and the wounded soldiers who are our students. And this takes me to the Shalom Project. And one of the things that we did within this specific project is that we reached out for wounded soldiers at the hospital, which is adjunct to the university, and told them and said, come, this is your, despite the fact that you are you are rehabilitating at the moment, and you lost a limb, you lost a leg, you lost an eye, you are all burned, and you are rehabilitating, start studying now as part of your rehabilitation. So we reached out, and we bring in from the hospital during rehabilitation, soldiers, study a little bit, not a full degree, 1, 2, 3 courses, and they come to the university and they study despite everything they go through, and the other students see them, and the other lecturers, hug them, and just having them with us is so important for our resiliency, for their resiliency, and for Israel's resiliency. And I will let Rivka add on top of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noa. Harvey, I wanna touch upon your question about are we more whole than we were before? Because I think the word whole for me holds 2 meanings. And for one, the answer is no, and for the other, the answer is yes. I think if you mean whole as the opposite of not broken, then the answer is no, because I think we were ruptured. I think this is a collective trauma, and I think to some extent we are broken and we will never be the same. But if you mean whole as a fuller, better version of ourselves, or at least potentially better version of ourselves, so I think the answer is yes. Because I think, and we know it from previous research, and I think everyone who works with people who went through difficult experiences, or even you, the audience, who think about yourself, I think that crisis and traumatic events can teach us new things about ourselves as individuals, as communities, as a culture, as a society. And I think we can grow better. This is what we call post-traumatic growth. And the interesting thing is that when you study people who were going through traumatic events, you see that those who made the most growth after the trauma are the ones who got most injured emotionally. The ones who are very resilient, they do not grow because they didn't need to change. Okay, they were resilient, they kept resilient. When your assumptions are broken, when you need to rethink your life, when you need to ask yourself, where am I going from here? How do I want my life to look from now on? what do I do with my losses? What do I want to do differently? Or what do I continue to do as I did? Then you undergo a real change and you grow out of it. You grow emotionally, you grow with your priorities, changing it, in a better way. You grow to appreciate life more. We know it from research. So I invite you to think of us Israelis and us Jews, all of us, as having the potential to grow from this terrible experience that we had to go through. Because if we reprioritize what we need to do in the world, what we need to do for us, what we need to do for our relationships with you, the Jewish peoplehood, I think we can really grow to become better and stronger and whole in this sense of the word. Okay?
Good, thank you. I have one more question, then I'm going to recite or get into some of the questions from our audience, and then we'll finish with one other question. So the last question I'm going to ask you right now is, you've talked about the third mission, and just again, for those who don't understand, the first two missions are Bar-Ilan, are teaching and research, and the third I would describe as chesed and helping people find their potential and heal. Can you tell us specific programs that you both involved in, specifically the Academic Resilience Center and Shalom Project? Can you just tell us how that fits in?
Yeah, so I'll just say maybe one or two general sentences, because I'm the vice president for the third mission. Right. And I really am very proud to say that I think this is part of Bar-Ilan's DNA, because Bar-Ilan is the only university that has appointed a VP for the third mission, which means that this is part of the president's vision, that social responsibility, doing chesed, is part of who we are. It's not something that we do, as the last thing on our list. This is really part of our DNA. And while this conversation today is focused on everything that we do that is related to the war and the Resilience Center, I really want to mention that we work on 3 tiers. One is, what can we do to better the lives of our students within Bar-Ilan, which means all kinds of projects that has to do with disability, with integrating people with autism into the university, with everything that relates to really integrating different populations within the university and helping our students flourish. The second tier is how we help the Israeli society. And as Noa mentioned, the injured soldiers are not our students, but we couldn't just stand, and see how they need to cope. We extend projects to help the Israeli society. The clinic that Noa was mentioning is a clinic where we treat people from all over Israel and from the southern parts of Israel, from Sderot, from the Gaza envelope, either by Zoom or they come here. And the third tier is that Bar-Ilan sees its responsibility to create stronger connections with the Jewish communities around the world. And this is really part of what we work in. And this is why we train our professors to go on missions to speak about anti-Semitism and to let people know what tools they can use in order to fight anti-Semitism. And we feel that, your struggles are ours, and we know that our struggles are yours. So this is just the general picture of what we do. And now I can move on to just describe maybe some of our projects.
Well,
okay,
yes.
just
Yeah.
go ahead.
No. We have so many. But I will touch upon one which is very specific, very, very unique and really touching. I mentioned the Shalom Project, and I mentioned how we suggest integrating into the university life, integration for the wounded soldiers. And, this is rehabilitation in action, because rehabilitation you do in society. You don't do it at the hospital. You just begin it at the hospital, but you have to go out and to be part of the campus life. Without your limb, with your prosthesis, without seeing, guided by a dog, you have to be part of the community again. And this is important for the soldiers. This is so important for the students, the other students, who must be grateful for those soldiers who pay the highest, price for their ability to study. I will just tell you a little bit about another project that Rivka was leading, and this is we do it together with the Patton project for veteran. And I'm sure you all are familiar with General Patton in America, and his grandchild is working with post-traumatized soldiers, veterans in the state via video therapy. So Rebecca was able to bring to Israel 4 directors, really, actual directors who are very well trained in post-trauma. And we had a group of severely post-traumatized soldiers, students. They worked with them for 3 days, and the students took video clips about their trauma. And we saw the movies, and we were crying like for an hour, because it was unbelievable. One of the students is my own student in class, and I will just mention that he came today. He was unable to sit and be part of the meeting that we had, because he was so overwhelmed. So we had to go out. I had to talk with him to bring him in. He went out again. This is post-trauma, really severe post-trauma. And what was amazing, that within 3 days, they were able to connect with their own feelings and describe them via this method. And on December 4, we have this evening in which we're going to show the video clips to the university members and students. And these wounded people will be able to stand there proud and talk about their unseen injury. And Patton.
But you know what, Professor Vilchinsky, you told us before we got on the call, you mentioned to some of us that this morning, can you just recount that story?
Thank you for reminding me, because today we just came, Rivka and I, from the meeting with the new cohort of wounded soldiers who are now starting their semester at the university. And we have this, we heard about the tremendous stories of bravery and injury. And now I was looking at the WhatsApp group of all of them, and one of them just mentioned, I'm so grateful for this, because these few weeks that I just started studying were the best for like a long time, of a year and a half that I was struggling. And now it's such an amazing feeling for me to be with student and not just a wounded person. And it's affecting me and my family and my surroundings. And they keep coming and telling us again, many of them in the group right now. And this is unbelievable for me to be part of.
Yashikal to both of you. All right, I'm going to move on, because we do have a number of questions that I want to get to from our audience. I think some of them have been answered regarding the third mission, what it is, about resiliency. But there are some questions here that I believe we should discuss, and I'm going to get to them right away. Someone writes in the audience that they're parents to a lone soldier, okay? The son is going to Gaza tomorrow. It's his 4th time dealing with this war despite the ceasefire. I know he is suffering emotionally. How can we help out our adult children who are going to the army? Is there anything they can do, the parents, to ease the burden, or just love him, I guess?
No. Rivka, you start. Yeah.
First, I think, I hear from this question that the parents need support as well.
Right.
It's, it was one of the toughest experiences for me as a mother of a parachute who was called on October 7th to the Gaza envelope, and he saw what he saw, to be at home and worry. But I can just imagine how horrible it is to be a mother in the US or elsewhere in the world, because I had my neighbors to worry with, and I had Noa to talk to. We share the same experience, all mothers in Israel. And I think, to be a mother of a lone soldier is a very lonely experience, or a father. I think we should maybe think about, I don't know if it's in our capacity, or maybe that's something that we can get the help of American Jewish psychotherapists, but definitely this is a group who needs support for itself.
Well, it's interesting you said that, because another one of the questions right after was, how can American therapists help Israelis with their mental health needs? Jewish Americans, they want help too. That you're answering that there should be some type of group of American Jewish therapists and psychologists that offer their support. I guess we'll have to look into that. But your answer is exactly what two people are talking. You have people who want to help and people who need the help. And they probably have been overlooked a bit.
Yeah, I think what we know to do best is matchmaking. So here's the matchmaking here.
Right. All right. I have just one other question, which is I think is an interesting question. In the sea of needs, many creative interventions have been developed. Please share about monitoring and study of the evidence based upon the impact of the services. That sounds like a psychologist question, right?
Yes.
A researcher. This is a researcher.
Researcher. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are only at the beginning of studying the effects, and definitely the effects of interventions. Everything here was very, polluted, so to speak. It's not a clear-cut study. We did everything to everyone at the same time, whatever we could do: psychoeducation, CBT, EMDR, whatever helped, groups, and so forth. But something that I don't know if I can mention that, but Rivka and I are working, mostly Rivka, on establishing a new center for trauma at the university, in order to really systematically study the effects of being in captivity, and what it is to come back from captivity. As we know, we have quite many of those who came back, and the situation is very grave, and also the effects of trauma in the level of a whole nation, also outstanding question, research question. So we are establishing a multidisciplinary center to look in depth into these questions, and hopefully we will be able to come up with, with ideas for how to do and what to do when this is needed.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to add something before we move on, Professor?
Just if I have 1 minute to add.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay, so first I will say that, of course, what we do first is evidence-based therapies and interventions. But please bear in mind, one, that we lack therapists and the need is huge. So sometimes we tend to do group therapy because it enables us to help more people at once. So this is one. The second is that we have this huge problem, and therapists can definitely identify with that young soldiers, especially young people and young soldiers and Nova survivors, for example, they refrain from reaching out for therapy because they do not like the stigma of being, diagnosed and of getting therapy, and they want to do it by themselves. So this is why we try to attract them for more art-based therapy, video therapy, more fun-based activities that are therapeutic, in order to serve as gate openers for the more traditional therapies. Because once we hook them to the intervention, we have them and they trust us, so they will go to therapy. But we must be creative, and I think this is part of what we are strong at. We listen to the needs, we see where are the gaps, and we come with the solutions.
Thank you.
And
go
Rivka, one
ahead.
second, tell
Yeah.
them about the new course.
I'm proud to say that we were able to, we are the first university to convince the rector of the university to give an academic credit for a course for soldiers to process the war experiences. We do it in an academic way, but this is a gate for them to start, working on their issues in a very safe environment, an academic environment.
Very,
And
very creative.
nobody calls it therapy. It's a
Right.
course.
That's very well done. All right, we're going to ask one final question, which we hope will end on a hopeful note. And this is a question that's an existential question. We just want your opinions, and that is basically after everything Israel has endured, what gives you both hope now and for your students, your community, and for the country's future? Eifo HaTikva, where is the hope?
Here with you guys.
Look, with people, with professionals like both of you, I can see with hope. No, it's true. Well said. But do you want to just mention anything just about your feelings for the future? Do you wake up every morning hopeful we're going to overcome? You have to, correct? You have to wake up with hope.
Right. And of course, we have our own difficult moments, but I think we are really not faking that we are hopeful. And I think for me, Noa can, speak for herself, but for me, it's because I think we are resilient. We are resilient as a society. We are resilient as a Bar-Ilan community. And for me, resilience means a few things. One is that we are connected and we do it as a community. No one needs to cope alone with anxiety or PTSD. And the second is that we share meaning. We know why we do it. We know we are part of the Jewish nation. We know we are Israelis. We know why we fight. And we know even that sometimes we lose, but we know we are part of a great chain of the Jewish nation. And the third thing is that we have great leadership. We try to be leaders for our young students, and we have great leadership by our president and the management. And I think leadership is part of what creates a resilient community. So I'm very hopeful.
Good. Professor Vilchinsky, you want to have the last word on this? Do you want to say anything?
Well,
you said a lot that's so positive today.
No, I mean, hope is not a question at all. I mean, Israel will sustain. We have no other choice.
Right.
And we're going to do the best we can to make this happen. And we will never, never, never give up.
Yeah, well, Amen. Well, I want to just say that both of you have been incredibly, not only insightful, but very inspirational. I could see why you're both very successful in your endeavors. I can see your students having the privilege of working with both of you, and I really mean that. You know what? And I wish you both continued success. So if anybody had questions that we didn't answer, please feel free to add it to our webinar chat. And hopefully the professors, when they have a free moment, which they probably don't, will answer them. There's been a lot of comments, I just want you both to know, from psychologists, therapists saying they want to help. So this idea of getting American psychologists involved, it's a great idea to use that resource. But you both are helping Bar-Ilan and the individuals, the communities help rebuild and grow strong, and we appreciate that very, very much. We also appreciate everybody who joined us today. I want to end by saying that there are many charities that are trying to help Israeli soldiers with post-traumatic stress. But it seems to me, this is my personal opinion, that giving directly to Bar-Ilan is probably the best thing to do if this is a subject that resonates with you, because you know where the funds are going, you know the competence of the individuals and the leadership role they've taken in this area. And I've heard from some of the larger charities in America, Jewish charities in America, this is on top. this is at the head of their list now of the initiatives that are critical over the next year or two. So I urge you to donate, if you can, to Bar-Ilan in general, and specifically to this very, very important area. And with that, I thank everybody for a really, really great learning experience, and hopefully we'll see you all in Israel very soon. Amen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you both. Bye-bye.